out for us. Let's get into game here on Pillars of Gold. Again, reminder, if Lambo wins one game, none of this matters, right?
He's guaranteed top 2 at the very least.
Perfect.
But if he wins the series, he will take first place.
Perfect.
And speaking of which, we have spawning up in the top right position of the map the aforementioned German player in the red. It is Lambo.
And his opponent, the bottom left-hand side in the blue from Team Roddy, and Croatia desperately needs a 2-0 here to make it happen. He is Goblin. Nice little early expand here for Lambo. What's this drone doing over here, Steadfast? Preventing the cannon rush?
Yes, that is exactly what he's doing. Players have started on this map to go for a cannon rush, a macro cannon rush in this position, which has just really been so potent because you can get such a cost-efficient wall set up right there, and just how far away the entrances are there.
Yeah.
It makes things very easy to wall off and very difficult and slow to respond to if this one pylon basically gets up. Right. In the between the extractor and that kind of high ground area on the left side.
Yes. Yes. So nice defense there by Lambo. Very clearly worried about some sort of trickery from Goblin. And, you know, that's pretty smart because Goblin is a player who, much like Robbie Rotten, can teach us all a lesson in trickery. He knows a ton of sneaky strategies and would not be afraid to do them. Even when everything is on the line, Goblin is one of those players where, like, absolutely would still cannon rush in game 1 of the most important series of the tournament. No question about it.
Yeah, and that just comes down to Lambo kind of respecting that a little bit. Now, Goblin, he's actually building a Zealot here, and that is super, super weird. Very surprising. I don't think Lambo went for a quick... Wait, what? Yeah, he went hatch first. This is very surprising. Okay, Okay. Yeah, he is going to deny scouting with this, but Lambo recognizes no additional units being built. He's just going to walk right in with the Overlord. Float right in, I should say. But, yeah, it doesn't... Why would he even... It's like, I don't care.
It's a smart scout. As long as Lambo gets the actual scout off, which he finally is, thank goodness. There it is. Should be able to see that Stargate soon, and we're going to see what pops out for Goblin. Now, look, guys, it's Goblin. Likely going to be Void Rays, I think, have been sort of what he's been leaning toward for the last couple weeks and months, even as the Void Ray buff came out in September? Whenever it came out, a while ago. He's been cranking out Void Rays left and right, so wouldn't be surprised to see that as his first run, especially since it is queued straight over to the Overlord, and there it is. First Void Ray pops out for Goblin. Dang, Steadfast, you're smart at this game. I'm smart at this game, too. It makes me feel good when I make a good call like that. Ha!
Yeah, Goblin is one of those players that loves the air flotilla. Very on brand for him to go for that. And look at this. We're going to be seeing a second Stargate coming down here. It's going to be Mass Void Ray coming out. And, well, anyone who is unfamiliar with Goblin's origins, the reason I say he loves those air units is he is one of the players that was so into making Mass Phoenix work. He would go triple Stargate on 2 base, get +1 air attack, and really just go for that. And it looks like he was going to hide the Void Ray at first, but recognizing that it's probably not going to be the case. And look at that third Stargate. There it is.
Yep.
Bing, bang, boom.
Yeah. He's going for a Phoenix second as well, which isn't indicative necessarily that he's going Mass Phoenix, but now I think it is. There are a couple opportunities, or a couple different options you have as a Protoss player when you drop a second and then a third Stargate. You can go for the Mass Void Ray into Flux Veins, into just destroy everything with lasers, or you can do what I think Goblin's probably doing, which is Mass Phoenix instead. And since he's got a third gateway down, it's unlikely that he's doing Phoenix Colossus. He is likely just going for this Mass Phoenix build. Not going to be a lot on the ground, and that opens up a lot of opportunities for Lambo to get some counter pressure in here, Steadfast. If you know your opponent is going for Mass Phoenix build, which Lambo does not yet, but should soon, what do you want to do to set yourself up for success against a player who's going for a lot of Phoenix?
Well,
besides this.
Yeah, I was going to say the Hydra Den will help a lot. But you are going to have to get at least 2 spores per base. I would say on a map like this, where the ramp is a little bit kind of hanging low between the main and the natural, probably going to want to get a a Spore Crawler maybe up on the high ground, just south of the top of that ramp. And then even a Spore Crawler between the second and third. And this is going to be Lambo seeing for the first time what's going on. He does have 4 queens already. And, well, maybe could have gotten jumped on, but I think this is the right call from Goblin to not try and go for this. But already one of these queens being lifted. Night Transfuse from Lambo is going to be able to push these back. And, well, this is a great defense so far.
Yeah, but this is one of the things that makes Mass Phoenix so scary, right? Is that you can defend perfectly, but then once you get pulled a little too far out of position, once your queens rotate just a little bit too much, these Phoenix can pop in and do a bit of damage. Luckily, of course, for Lambo, these Hydras are now out on the map, which means he doesn't just have to rotate queens, he's got to go Hydras as well. And this is one of the very few opportunities, I'd say, Steadfast, where when you're building Hydralisks, going for Hydralisk speed first is actually the right call. I'd say 99% of the time in other games, you'd want to go for Hydralisk spines first to increase the range. I think speed first is the right call, though.
I definitely speed first in this scenario is going to help him a ton. In general, personally, as a Zerg player, I prefer the speed first.
Really?
By no means am I a pro player, but just the maneuverability, they feel so clunky and slow until you get at Hydra speed.
Yeah.
Now, of course, the range is very, very important. You really don't want to fight without it. But being able to reposition them defensively, especially in a scenario like this, is so helpful with that speed. Oh, this drone gonna... Oh, okay. Yeah, it is going to get picked off. Probably wanted to turn into a Spore right there.
Yeah.
Oh, I love the addition of the single Infestor. This could be such a game-changing unit with this Mass Phoenix composition.
Yeah, and we've seen Infestors versus Mass Phoenix before in DreamHack, and I believe the last time it was an incredible... I can't even remember who's playing. I just remember an incredible fungal growth slowing everything down and giving those Hydras just enough time to get underneath the Phoenix clump and take out a ton of them. Of course, only one Infestor means that Lambo's aim has to be perfect, Steadfast. He can't be ahead of the Phoenix. He can't be behind. Of course, it's very difficult to land the perfect fungal, but if anybody can do it, Lambo can. Behind this, Goblin going for Charge Lot, adding on a Templar Archive, so he's going to transition from this Mass Phoenix opener into an Archon Charge Lot build. Now, he's baited out a lot of Hydralisks from Lambo, and not a lot else right now. Lambo even committing for even more heavily to these Hydralisks, going for +2 missile attacks. Steadfast, is Charge Lot Archon good against Hydralisks? And is this just a debate from Goblin to try and sneak out a bad army comp from Lambo and then take advantage by rotating ahead of time?
Well, it can be good if you go for a smaller commitment. Nice run on into the main. Will keep all the... Oh, no, he did lose a Phoenix right there. That's a little bit unfortunate. He's actually lost 5 Phoenixes, which is quite a bit.
Yeah.
That's like... Yeah, a quarter of his overall Phoenix numbers. I will say in a smaller commitment scenario, that is a really good thing for the Phoenix player. A lot of lifts being used right here, but not all that successful.
Yeah.
I think he only got 1 queen and lost another Phoenix. That's not a good trade.
That's right. Yeah, not the trade he was looking for at all. Go ahead, Steadfast.
Yeah, normally I would say it's pretty good, but Hydras are actually good units to have as Zerg, as long as you know you're not going up against Mass Storm or like, Mass Carrier. But given the game state, given how much has been committed here and how kind of late the transition was from Goblin, I would say this is a really good scenario for Lambo. And he's already going up to Aspire and Hive and may try and leverage this queen count to go for possibly a Broodlord push. That's kind of crazy to me. We haven't seen Broodlords in a long time. Yeah. No Lurker Den on the way, so it does make me feel like, yeah, we might just see some Broodlords.
Definitely plausible. Usually, of course, if you're going up to Hive Tech, I think it's, as you said, much more common these days if you're going for the Lurker Hydra push. Just what seems to be in vogue right now, obviously touted by players such as, there it is, there's the fungal we talked about. Man, here I am giving advice on the meta, and Lambo is landing sick fungal growths there. A little surprised he didn't get 2 of them down, but 1 is going to be plenty. Tearing down that Phoenix count, 13 total have now gone down. The army supply for Lambo slightly ahead of Goblins, and look at the army value, Steadfast, twice as much. As almost twice as much here. Okay, fine. 25% more than Goblin. Goblin switching into carriers here, and this is the transition we talked about a little bit earlier, Steadfast. The carrier transition can be pretty tough to deal with, but Greater Spire coming down. How do you feel about Broodlords versus carriers?
Oh, I'm not a fond of them, but I will say that if you can hit before the magic number with a kind of early-ish timing with that, you can get some success, but the problem is this is very fast carriers, relatively speaking. They already have that +1 attack. we're not going to be seeing like this is just Carrier Storm Phoenix pretty much right now.
Yep.
There's only a couple of charge lots on the field. We haven't even seen a robotics facility just yet. That is just now coming down. Goblin has cut a lot of corners to make this happen, and Lambo is going to be scouting in here with this Overseer, and he's going to see the mass Stargate in the main base. And seeing those carriers come in, this might actually be enough to cause him to not even build Broodlords. Either he goes right now or he doesn't go at all.
Yeah, I think that's an absolutely accurate assessment. It's funny, I saw almost this exact same game earlier today with Creator versus B, and it went almost in exactly the same way. And in this game, B did in fact go for Broodlords, which Lambo is pumping out 4 of the Broodlords, 5 on the way now. A good storm, but it's all in the Lings. These Hydras in the back still very, very healthy. The Phoenix are going to be pulled out, but the Hydra's count is so high now, Steadfast. 26 of them, and the Phoenix count down to 8. It was up at, I think, 20 almost earlier. Of course, a lot of them dying to that terrifying fungal from Lambo. Lambo's Infestor still here. Burrow not finished, by the way, so that Infestor could be prone to some lifts, but the Queens have arrived now with the Broodlords, and, ooh, man, Steadfast, this looks dangerous with 14 Banes on the way also. Oh, boy.
This is going to sound weird to say, but this is almost an all-in from Lambo. He is really looking to get a lot of damage done with this. If the carrier count gets too high, this is going to be really difficult. Nice fungal growth, but equally beautiful storms, and they will hit the Hydras and the Broodlords, and this is looking really difficult right now. Ooh, he actually uses the never-seen upgrade that I've forgotten the name of right now.
Shroud.
Microbial Shroud coming down. Ends up acting as kind of a target for where to lay those storms. Goblin getting some nice storms as well, once again on both the Broodlords and the Hydras, and I think this is going to be a really solid fight for Goblin. Beautiful storms once again. Oh my goodness, and Lambo is going to get routed here in this fight.
Wow, Lambo living that Billie Holiday life and encountering a lot of stormy weather since those two armies got together. My God, 8 carriers still around, and can we take a look at the carrier count? Steadfast, you see 8 carriers out, and you see after a big fight that they all don't have any interceptors left over. What does that tell you about Lambo's target firing during that fight?
Well, it tells you that he was focused on those interceptors. But if I see that, I say, well, I'm not dead yet. I'll be dead in 2 minutes.
Exactly. A bit of a short-term gain as you don't target fire down the Colossus, or the carriers, rather. Instead, what happens is it's a very odd AI interaction, is that the Hydralisks auto-target the interceptors instead of the carriers, because the interceptors are doing direct damage. So it means the carriers live for a little bit longer. The Phoenix count pretty low now. The carrier count picked down just a little bit, but most importantly, I think for Lambo, the Broodlord count down to 0. That is a huge investment from Lambo. Goblin's capital ship army still intact, but Lambo's is not. We can see the army value much closer than it was before, but all of that is in Hydras now for Lambo, and a couple Corruptors instead of in Broodlords. Wow, he's still building that +1 air carapace. I guess that's to keep the Corruptors alive for a little bit longer?
Yes, Hydras are not the answer to carriers. I kind of alluded to it earlier. Lambo was a little bit all in, and you actually made a very cogent point about kind of baiting your opponent into a bad army composition. Yeah. Hydras are very good in the mid game, but as the carrier count gets higher, they get really, really fall off. And Goblin skipped straight from that Mass Phoenix into a very fast storm, and then behind that, an incredibly fast carrier transition. Really didn't go for much other than just some static defenses and charge behind that. He really cut corners to get these carriers out, and as a result, Lambo wanted to hit that timing. His scouting didn't see the transition early enough, and the Broodlord timing, well, we saw the result of that. It just did not work.
Goblin is step and a half ahead here on tech transitions, because he's of course now forcing Lambo rather. If he's on Broodlords, Lambo of course forced to build a lot of Corruptors to protect the Broodlords, right? You know what's fantastic against Corruptors, Steadfast? Void Rays, and we do see Void Rays coming out. Getting the Anion Pulse Crystals for the Phoenix is a bit of an odd choice there. Should be going for Void Rays and Flux Veins, I think, but getting everything else behind this. +3 air weapons about to finish, +2 shields about to finish, Blink coming in, and the banks for Goblin looking a lot healthier than the bank for Lambo right now. Lambo is on 3-1, working on a bunch of upgrades as well, including, ooh, he's getting that Infestor upgrade. Some more Infestors could be nice. You know what he's missing right now, though, Steadfast? I don't see a single, not one Viper on the map for Lambo.
Yeah, this is going to be such a difficult push to hold. Those Hydras have to, oh man, if they spread, they get wrecked by the carriers. If they clump up, they get stormed to death, and this is going to be such a difficult position. Now, the Broodlords are out. They are going to try and zone these High Templar away, but Goblin knows how to handle a carrier storm army, and he is going to just step forward and obliterate these broodlords. The Hydra is getting pushed back by the storm, and that is just going to be way too much for Lambo to handle. He tries to step forward. It's another massive storm. Corruptors are not going to be enough to turn this fight around, and Lambo will get taken down in this game number 1. And with that, his position in the top 2 is in jeopardy.
Yes! This is exactly what we were hoping for. I was hoping for, Steadfast. An upset victory on day 7. If Gabo takes the 2-0 win here, as you said, not only do his chances of moving up increase exponentially, but he could knock Lambo down to that even potentially 3rd and 4th place spot. The scenario still alive, Steadfast. I'm going to avoid checking the Liquipedia in between because I don't want to know what's happening elsewhere. I want to focus on this game because there's so much to talk about that game. Steadfast, Goblin won that pretty convincingly at the end there. That last fight didn't even look close for what we saw of it. I mean, it was hard. It's always hard to tell when there are storms and interceptors, and my poor computer's like, oh, it's so many polygons. But Goblin pushed it, pardon me, Lambo pushed it to Goblin's natural in 3rd with Broodlords around the 10-minute mark or so. Would you say that that was the turning point of the game and sort of where the wheels fell off of the Lambo wagon?
Absolutely, 100%. I think that Lambo could have, okay, so his scouting, which is uncharacteristic for him because his scouting is normally so on point. He's so good at this game. And, well, let's be honest, that's what makes Serral such an amazing player, is he is scouting every minute, every 30 seconds sometimes. Yeah. Absolutely on point. But Lambo's scout came in just before his Greater Spire finished, and he saw 3 Stargates. He saw carriers being built out of them, and he said he made a decision that obviously I have perfect vision. I know what's up.
Of course.
But I didn't agree with, and that was to go in with basically, like I said, kind of an all-in push off those Broodlords.
Right.
And it did not work. He could have thrown down double Spire. He could have gone up to Vipers, could have built a Spore Forest, gone up to like a really, really long game scenario. Sure. But instead he tried to end it all on that, let's be real, very large economic state. But it just wasn't enough. And as a result, Goblin holds on, takes the lead, gets up to those +3 carriers with their +2 shields, and absolutely obliterates Lambo's army in game number 1.
Oh, man, what a game 1. If that's G1, I don't know what's in store for G2. Let's hop into all the action here, Steadfast, on Lightshade LE, spawning in the bottom right-hand side in the red, repping no team because he's a strong, independent Zerg who don't need no team. It's our German Zerg player, Lambo.
And his opponent spawning up in the top left position of the map, representing Team Roddy and giving himself the shot he needs to make it through. It is the blue Protoss player, Gabo. Goblin, of course. I don't know. It just sounds fun coming out of my mouth. You know, you know how it'd be.
I think why we like, yeah, it totally sounds fun. I think why we like it is because we know him as a player as being a bit cheeky, a bit fun, a bit wacky, like with his builds. And I feel like calling him a funny name like Gabo, it matches his playstyle so well. It's like when you call Serral a Sith Lord. It makes sense because his play is ruthless and efficient and terrifying, and you're like, right, that nickname fits his playstyle so well. And I feel like that's what it is with Gabo as well, where you're just like, of course, he's Goblin. He's kind of goofy, kind of fun, kind of wacky. He's Gabo. It's so fun. It's so fun. 3rd base forced out here for Lambo. He can't take that natural, but Steadfast, can you talk a little about how that's not a big deal anymore for Zerg players taking that natural?
I wouldn't say per se it's not a big deal.
I'm overstating it.
Is. Well, no, you are right. It's nowhere near as big of a deal as it used to be when 4-Gate Adept was the build everyone did, and the defenses weren't quite figured out as well as they used to be. Now, DRG did, of course, revolutionize that defense with the 1-gas, 41 drone Roach Warren with those Spore Crawlers, that Spine Crawler at the 3rd.
Right.
And even now we're starting to see even a 2nd defense come up, which I haven't gotten a chance to see many games with it, but I've heard about it. The 2-gas, very quick 3 Ravager play where you go after the War Prism with those Corrosive Vials. And honestly, now that there are 2 defenses, things get a lot more complicated for the Protoss player. And to be honest, it's just, we're not seeing it every game anymore the way we were after that IEM, where, things went pretty well for Zest.
Yeah, I seem to recall things going pretty well for Zest in that in that tournament. Oh, jeez. Another Stargate pops down here for Goblin, but are we really surprised? Is anyone surprised? No one's surprised, Steadfast. Gobbo almost always goes Stargate first. He's just very comfortable in the matchup with Stargate, and we can see why, right? Getting good initial pressure with those Void Rays, and then just seamless transitions, baiting Lambo into doing basically the wrong thing and just staying one step ahead of his opponent. He's like Aladdin, or he's just like one step ahead of the breadline the entire time. Goblin doing such a nice job last game, going into the 2 Stargate, into the 3 Stargate, and then pushing from there with Phoenix, Carriers, additional Void Rays. Nice, well-rounded army. Void Ray again, obviously, just to push away this Overlord. And back home, Lambo. Not much else here, Steadfast. Still just 1 gas, saturated up. Even Link Speed finished up now. What's he saving up his gas for? And when will we really know?
Well, you know, it's one of those things that that first 100 gas is pretty pivotal for the Zerg. Do you go for a layer? Do you go for a super fast +1 melee, which we don't see much anymore?
Right.
Do you go for 2 gases and an early Roach Warren? There's a lot of options. This is super interesting, though. From Lambo, a little bit unfortunate for him. He is pulling the second Overlord back, but he did something that's a little bit uncommon, which is where you send the second Overlord straight across the map, and he did actually poke it into the main base.
Right.
But the target was built at the natural, so he ends up actually sending it basically all the way home. It's already about halfway back, and I can't believe he's actually gonna maybe get away with this. And it's super funny that he's doing this, and really unfortunate for him, and a really great situation for Goblin, because, yeah, you just highlighted it there. The fast Resonating Glaives follow-up, and this is super interesting because he's actually going up to 3 Void Rays, and wow, even starting up that +1 air weapons.
Whoa.
He is, he's already starting basically a late-game transition at the 440 mark.
Okay, phenomenally interesting here from Goblin. This is not a build I can say I've ever seen before. Steadfast, you may have seen it before, but I think we can both agree, very unorthodox, very unusual. As you said, normally what happens is you'll get out 2 Void Rays, Void Ray Oracle, maybe 2 Oracles and a Void Ray, 3 units at most, and then transition straight into about 4 gates, Glaive to Depths, Robo, get the Warp Prism off, and just have a late Glaive to Depth push off of these 2 or even 3 bases sometimes. What he's doing instead is now making a 4th Void Ray, starting up the +1 air weapons as if he's going to go late game air, but adding 4 gates behind this. Steadfast, I'm not sure if he's going to let this air attack finish, but Goblin taking that early 3rd base, that moderately early 3rd base, is going to give him a ton of income to support 8 gates. Is he going to have enough income to support 8 gates, Void Rays, +1, and Glaive to Depths?
Well, with the buff to the Void Ray cost, and the fact that Glaive Adepts are not all that gas expensive, this is so weird. He's got a lot of gas in the bank, actually. I'm wondering if he's going to throw down a Templar Archives and go for, like, Resonating Glaives, Archon, Void Ray +1 all in.
Wow.
But this is a rough scenario for Lambo right here. He has only built Hydras. No Roach Warren has been thrown down. And, well, Hydras, this is something that maybe people don't know, but you're going to see in just a little bit. They get absolutely shredded by Resonating Glaives Adepts.
Yeah.
And this is so unfortunate for Lambo. He still doesn't really know what's going on.
Nope.
There is an infestation pit that is coming down, which implies to me late game transition into Hive. But man, that's not what we're seeing. +1 weapons is going to be finished, by the way, for both players on the Void Rays and then on the Hydras, respectively.
Wow, immediate shade finish there onto the Queens. 1 Queen down, 2 Queen down, 3 Queen down, and 4. The Hydras come out a little bit late. The Void Ray's going to be chased away here, but the Queen's already down. That means no transfuses available on anything here. Goblin, of course, being pushed off of creep here, but as you said, Lambo did not see this until it was much too late, and now with 9 gates on the field, Goblin can warp in 9 Adepts. I was going to say so many, but 9 Adepts, Steadfast. Holy crap, this is a lot of Adepts.
Yes, it is. Now, what Goblin wants to do is he wants to have the Adept Shade get right on top of those Hydras, but Lambo is doing an excellent job. Ooh, snipes the Observer. That's really nice.
Yeah.
That means his creep threat is going to stay up, and that's going to give him so much vision on these Adepts. But what Goblin wants to do is get right on top of the Adepts, or the Hydras with his Adepts, and Lambo is not letting it happen. He's bunkered down at that 3rd base. Really excellent crisis management from Lambo. And here is the big, a little bit of a fake big fight. Are we going to see the Adept Shades finish? Yes, we will. Right into the natural.
Right into the natural. A couple drones going to start going down here, but as you said, the drone's not really the primary target here for the Adepts. It's good damage. It's not game-ending damage yet. Oh my god, if he snipes the Hydra Den, are you kidding me? No way. Going to finish that Shade into the third base, and he's getting good damage on the drones here. 9 drones going down, but he's got to get some of these Hydralisks down. If all the Adepts die, there are going to be a ton of Hydras still on the field, and the counter damage could just be too much. He's going to move some Adepts into the natural, move some Adepts up into some Void Rays rather into the fourth base here, and try and keep Lambo busy for as long as he can back home. Steadfast, is this still working?
No, it is not at all. This was a very, very committed attack, and Lambo responded so well from a position of great discomfort, I would say. A very uncomfortable situation for him. Now, Goblin is not all in. As I said, he's already technically preparing for that late game transition, and there it is right now. We're seeing a similar rush right up to that carrier storm as we did in game number 1. Now, of course, Lambo is in a much better position to punish this than he was in the first game, but he needs to recognize it. Honestly, I would say the next time he plays Goblin, we're going to be seeing a lot of speed overseers from Lambo.
Absolutely we are. That's a great observation, Steadfast. Oh man, just to give you guys an idea of how insane this build from Goblin is and how amazing Lambo's defense was. I don't know if you saw Steadfast, Cyril's in the chat shitposting with the other Twitch chat GMs. And somebody said, Cyril, how would you respond to this? And he said, I'd tab out as soon as I saw the Adepts, honestly. So a great defense by Lambo, who is up in army supply, who's in pretty good shape economically as well. His fourth base down, but like you said, late game transition on the way, Storm finishing up, carriers on the way, great scout timing from Lambo, gets in to see it just as he sets up for a push here on the third base of Goblin. And Goblin, oh, he's got a big game ahead of him. 19 Banelings on the way as speed finishes up for him there, Steadfast.
Yes, and the +2 on these Hydras is going to make this so difficult to deal with. As you said, speed already done on these Banelings. Lambo is on 4 bases. He's going up to a Hive and a Lurker Den, but he is absolutely looking to get some damage done right now. And it is going to be very difficult to stop. This is going to come all down to the Storms. Decent Storm so far, but the Banelings getting right on top of the Zealots and those Adepts as well. The Banelings going to close it on the Idepar. Will get 2 of them right away. Very nice stuff.
And there's more. He's not done yet. Lambo gets in, and Goblin knows it. GG, Steadfast. Lambo grabs game number 2 and takes us to a game 3. Steadfast in between games. Can you really quickly tell us what that 1-game win means for Lambo's position in this group?
Well, independent of any other results, it guarantees him top 2 and gives him a really, really good chance of coming in first place still.
Yeah.
Now, he does want to win this series in order to absolutely secure that. And we talked about the difference between playing Raynor, Cyril, or Clem.
Yeah.
And playing one of the second place players. And that is now Lambo's sole focus. It really takes some weight off of his shoulders and honestly probably some weight off of his chest. You know, you're like, deep breath.
Yeah.
I've guaranteed myself top 2.
Yeah, he's got to be so happy about that. The difference between Hydra, goodness gracious, that last game's still in my brain. The difference between upper bracket and lower bracket is massive, and Cyril's going to be, Lambo's going to be very happy about his position here. Oxide LE for map number 3. Can you give us some Zergy insights on this map, Steadfast? What does Oxide mean for a Zerg player? Do you expect anything different from Lambo this game than last game?
Like I said, if anything, I think we see more speed overseer scouts. I don't think it's got anything to do with the map. I think it's got everything to do with the player. And, well, as far as the map itself, to actually answer your question there, the bases are a little bit kind of more spread out. But more than anything, you just want to focus on taking down those rocks as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
He's going to be looking, is Lambo, I think, to prevent Goblin from getting up to that carrier storm. But conversely, we may actually see him just lean into the late game a little bit more. This is a map that's very spread out. Charge lot run-bys in the late game become a little bit complicated to deal with. Splitting the map is not exactly easy, per se, but if anyone can do it, if anyone can play that late game well, I would say it's Scarlet, Cyril, Raynor, but I would say Lambo is very good at that late game.
That was the best, like, backdoor comp. You're like, if anybody can play the late game well, Oh, okay. It's Scarlet or Sarah or Raynor. But if anybody else can play the late game,
I would rank Lambo's late game very highly. I would say it is very, very high up there.
No question.
Only really those 4 players would I say are ahead, but I wouldn't even say it's by much.
No, I mean, come on, look at Lambo's position in the group stage right now. He's at 5-1, I think.
5-1. Yep.
Unbelievable, top of his group. Obviously, an incredible player, mid, early, late game. The good news is we're gonna figure out what goes down as we hop into map number 3, Steadfast. Will you tell us who our first player is today?
Oh, you know it. I am so excited about it. I am a Lambo fanboy, and can I get some of these in the chat spawning down to the bottom left position? It is the red Zerg player, Lambo. Will he go Rambo?
Nice. Nice. Steadfast, you're a great commentator. You know how to get Twitch chat riled up. That's like the #1 question when you go in for an interview to be a commentator. Like, do you know how to make Twitch chat spam a lot of things? And you're like, yes, I do. It's great. Spawning in the top right-hand side, our Croat in the blue from Team Roddy. His name is Goblin. Taking game 1, dropping game 2. Now, we saw game 1 go a little bit later than I probably expected because of Goblin's unorthodox builds. Steadfast, do you think that Goblin still has like the technical prowess, the micro, the macro to actually beat Lambo, or is he just going to win based on these weird builds that Lambo's not expecting?
I'm sure if you were to ask Lambo, he would say, I can only lose to the weird builds.
Sure.
But to be honest, Goblin has a very solid understanding of the late game, of that late game PvZ. And not only that, the big strength is the unpredictability of Goblin. There's so much you have to deal with. And I like that you pointed out right there, as Lambo saw the chrono boost on that Stalker, he turned that second Overlord around.
Yep.
That is a really important situation, because we could have seen Goblin actually go hunting on the map. The player Gerald, big fan of Gerald, is one of those players that's a big fan of that. I see you showing off the, is it Moopy?
Moopy, yes, Moopies. Which are like the legally not Ewoks to protect the IP of StarCraft 2.
Yeah. So this is really funny. In game number 1 and game number 2, we saw the latest robotics facilities. I actually don't think we saw a robotics facility in game number 2, but in game number 1, it came down like after the air transition has already started. In game 3, it's the first tech building that comes down. Not even the first tech building, first building basically after the cybernetics core. And that goes to show the trickery of Goblin. And I think we are going to see a charge lot all in from Goblin. Kind of the Marjorie build right here.
I think almost exactly, isn't it? Yeah, this is exciting stuff, man. Charge lots with a couple more gateways coming down. Now, with this build, you start with 3 gateways. Do you add a 4th gateway on, or does Goblin stay on 3 the entire time, Steadfast?
How many gateways?
Yeah.
Well, if it's the pure Marjorie, you go up to like 7 gateways, 8 gateways. You go, you stop mining gas, you go super, super all in, and
Why, look! Goblin stopped mining gas! Why, look! He's building a crap ton of gateways! Why, look! Oh, man. All right, Steadfast. We know what's happening now on Gobbo's side of the map. Talk to me about Lambo. How does he scout? Well, he's got to scout this, right? And then what does he do to respond? Can he respond appropriately if he doesn't scout it?
No. You can't respond appropriately if you don't scout this. And look at this fake out from Goblin right here. He took the gases at the natural, but I think... Oh, man, Lambo hasn't had the chance to check them yet. He doesn't know that they are not mined. If he can just click in there and see that no gas. Oh, no. Oh, look at that. He actually faked the gas mining.
Yep. Just for a couple seconds
Goblin.
there. So the numbers are slightly different. This is so scary. Double Immortal out. Obviously, those last 2 gateways finishing up. But look at these lings. They scouted this. But as far as Lambo knows, this is like an Archon drop, right?
He has no idea what this is. Well, actually, no. It's probably too early to be anything other than Double Immortal. But Lambo, he went up to 54 drones. He is so economically committed. He's going to throw down some static defenses. He started to build roaches, but this is going to be so difficult to deal with. Oh, I love this decision to make a wall at the front. Honestly, if you have to sacrifice the third base,
you sacrifice it?
I think you have to.
Whoa.
Otherwise, you may just die as Goblin or as Lambo. But Goblin, he's going to push right into the natural, and this is very interesting. We see a cancel on this. Nice target fire on the spine crawlers from Goblin right there. These roaches getting picked off, chewed apart. Now Lambo is actually getting a lot out to deal with this, and he's doing a pretty good job so far.
Yeah, his roach count, though, dangerously low. A lot of that army supply you see is still in the eggs hatching right now. A lot of lings, a lot of roaches. The good news is the queens have been so active trying to pick down this warp prism that, as you can see, Goblin not able to get a lot of warp ins here, and he's going to be forced to bring these immortals back, warp in more zealots. He's warping in zealots back home because he can't warp them in with the warp prism because the queens have done such a nice job target firing. This is not the worst defense I've ever seen from Lambo, and honestly, a little amazed that it's working. The good news is he's still at 50 drones. Goblin's still on 2 bases, only on 32 probes, but Goblin ain't done yet.
No, he is not. But the fact that Lambo has held this so far is so incredibly impressive. I don't think we're going to see another drone from Lambo in this game, and we don't need to. Charge lots are going to get on top of this. Ooh, a little bit of miss micro with those lings, but actually kind of baits the charge lots away from the roaches and lets the roaches take a pretty good fight onto the bottom side. I misspoke. That was a really nice little move from Lambo.
Yeah, this is impressive here. Lambo doing a really nice job. His micro with the lings was really impressive, as you said, baiting out those charge lots so they hit the zealot or the zerglings with their charge instead of those roaches, and the roach is able to add a lot of damage to the back. Now, Goblin's done a good job of saving these 2 immortals, but the longer this game goes on, the worse and worse it gets. I mean, look at the income right now for Lambo. He's light years, he's parsecs ahead of where Goblin is right now. At what point does Goblin have to realize this is not going to work, and is there any way for him to pull out of this economically, Steadfast?
No. There is not. Lambo's been on 3 bases, as you said, this whole time. Goblin, he has to end the game now, but I don't think at this point, I don't think he can anymore. Roach speed is going to be done. Normally, when you're talking about the defense against this build, that's not even in the conversation.
Yeah.
But this is a lot of charge lots, but the lings are tanking very effectively. Roach speed finishes in the middle of the fight, and this is a great position for Lambo. These zealots are not going to be able to get the surface area. More zealots being warped in, but I just don't think it is going to be able to break through. Man, that's a lot of zealots, though.
It's going to be very close here. The most important thing was a couple more queens went down. Look at the Demon's Lost have 9 queens have gone down, which means this warp prism is able to be a much bigger factor in this game. In fact, the queen count now at 0, which means this warp prism can always continually warp in zealots, and that's one of the factors of this build that's so important, is keeping the zealots on the field for as long as you possibly can. What he's got to do is get it set up for another warp in here, get another round of zealots in, but he can't afford to do it. This is really great by Lambo, stopping that warp prism from working, and even though he's lost all those queens, I feel like Lambo's still in a pretty decent spot here. As long as Goblin can't continue warping in zealots on zealots on zealots, he's going to be just fine, and Lambo looking better and better, stronger and stronger. A scary tertiary attack from Goblin, but Lambo continues to hold. These 2 immortals have been alive for the entire game, Steadfast. I'm impressed.
Yes, this is what made the build so scary from Goblin, is he was really good with that Warp Prism micro. But what else made the build very scary was that 8 charge lot impact damage.
Yeah.
Not only did it mean that you 2-shotted lings, it helped so much against the roaches. And, well, that hasn't been in the game for a long time. And when that happened, the Marjorie build kind of died. And we see, even with Lambo going up to 56 drones initially against this, he's still very comfortably holding this. There was only really one scary moment, I feel, in this game number 3. And honestly, Lambo, he knows that Goblin is so all in with this that he's not going to transition. He never did when the Marjorie build was still successful.
Yep.
And to be honest, Lambo, it feels like at this point, it's just a matter of him waiting until Goblin mines out his main and even potentially natural bases.
I mean, what an odd choice here from Goblin. We can't go too much further without stating that, I mean, this game practically all but over now, Steadfast. A comeback from Goblin would be almost unthinkable. Wow, Overlord even dropping creep in the natural just to be annoying.
Yeah,
this is
a little
ridiculous.
bit of a flex there.
Ridiculous. But the thing that you have to do for this build to work, right, is warp in your initial 7, 8, 9 zealots, and then when the zealots hit, you're already warping in more behind it, so that the Zerg player never has a chance to disengage. Once a Zerg player can disengage, put some space between you and the zealots, they get much better trade. So the whole point of having this many flippin' gateways back home is that you have to continue the pressure constantly. The fact that Lambo was able to drive back that Warp Prism with the Queens so early on. The Warp Prism unable to warp in meant that a number of Zealots couldn't be compounded by Goblin for the entire first portion of the game, and that allowed Lambo to stabilize and grab more of these roaches. And I'm sorry, Steadfast, you're going to lose your caster license. Earlier, you said Lambo would never build more drones, and you could not be more wrong. He added on 2 more drones behind that. What is Goblin doing with these Zealots? Like, this is so useless. I guess he's trying to find an angle of attack, maybe bait the roaches into the main or something. Goblin's building a third base behind this Steadfast. It feels like the last dying breaths of a gasping, drowning Protoss player.
It kind of does, yeah. Ooh, nice Ravager morph right there from Lambo on that one low health roach as it was being target fired down. Yeah, so this was a really, actually, I wanted to highlight how I liked the move from Goblin. And then he didn't do anything with it. He put those Zealots on the right side of the map, baited the whole army, as you were talking about, into the main base with that Warp Prism and Immortals, and then just didn't go for it. Now, it feels like to me he's holding these for when Lambo goes for his big attack, which is looking like it's going to be now. And then maybe he can get like a kill on the third base, but no, we're going to see these Zealots. Oh, okay. He's going to split them off?
Yep, no, he's going for it. It's just a weird move command, just a bit of a weird thing from Goblin here. Plenty of Banelings back home, though. Even though the Banelings don't have speed, the creep spread is still decent from Lambo. He sees this coming. The Banelings alone enough to scare this away, and oh my god, these freaking... Oh, they're going to get trapped. Oh, they're going to get trapped. Oh, boy. As Lambo makes his way across the map, are you kidding me? He doesn't see him. Wow. Those guys saved by the hairs on their chinny chin chins, but the final engagement Steadfast. I mean, can Goblin hold here? He's got plenty of Immortals.
He does. Immortals and Force Field's very good against roaches. There's no Bane speed with this. But of course, those Ravagers breaking the Force Field, helping out a lot. Nice micro from Goblin. Wow. He actually does have the opportunity to do something here. The shield batteries are not yet done at that third base. He needs them up right now and battery overcharge. Zealots in the third base of Lambo. This is actually potentially what Goblin needs to do right here. Looks like the batteries were taken out, though. I was just going to say, he needs to sacrifice that third base and recall to the natural. And that's exactly what we're seeing. Banelings coming back in. Goblin going to try and split against them.
Ha! Banelings with that speed, man. Totally splittable.
Really nice splits.
It's just when you've got one Baneling for every single Zealot. They're going to get cleaned up eventually. 15 drones have gone down, but 26 drones have gone down, but 15 probes have gone down behind this. There's still a couple charge lots working on this third base. I mean, this is crazy. But Goblin, oh my god, look who has more workers right now. Are you kidding me? Does that matter, Steadfast? Goblin's only on 2 bases. It doesn't matter, right?
No, it matters. It matters a lot right now. That was such a huge turnaround right there from Goblin. Now, he is still in a very difficult position, but Lambo is in a really tough position decision-making wise. He needs to decide, do I try and drone out of this, or do I try and go for an all-in? Because he is, right now, all in economically speaking, and the force fields from Lambo are gonna, or from Goblin I should say, are gonna segment these roaches off. A nice start for Goblin. Really nice force fields once again, catching some of those units on the left side, but the Immortals are all on the right. If these Banelings can get through, this is gonna be a real big problem for Goblin. Nice usage of the Warp Prism to reposition these units.
Yeah, he's saving a lot of those sentries. The problem is with all those force fields, that means almost your entire army for Goblin is sentries. Look at the unit counting section. It's 8 sentries and 5 Immortals. There's not a single Zealot on the field right now. Warping in more sentries as well. I feel like Goblin is buying himself time, but he's not actually going to be able to win based on just this army composition. As that said, though, he gets a couple more Zealots out, another Immortal getting plotted out, and Goblin moving across the map Steadfast. It looks like he wants to be the aggressor. Are you kidding me right now? 28 probes to 31 drones. Lambo able to slip in a couple rounds of drones behind this, and it's looking better for Lambo. Is it worth it to take a 4th base here, Steadfast, or do you think he stays on 3 until he knows what's going on?
No. Absolutely cannot take a 4th base right now. He needs to put everything into army. He knows that his opponent did not try and retake a 3rd, and he kept him from being able to do so. And he knows that this is the push. There is so little minerals left in the main and natural for Goblin, and Goblin has to make it happen right now. Oh, nice forces, but just barely didn't trap those links. The 4th one does come down and seals a couple of them in, but that could have been so good for Goblin as a start to this fight. Army supply still very close. Army value actually in favor of Goblin. He is still on the precipice of maybe making this happen.
No way. No flippin'. I mean, this is insane. From the Mark rebuild into a win, it seems unlikely. It seemed unlikely in 2012, and it seems unlikely now. Steadfast, this is crazy. The number of sentries is nutballs, though. Look at this, 19. I've never seen 19 sentries in a game before. 6 immortals in the back. There's so much DPS in this army, despite having a lot of sentries. And wow, we're going to see Goblin trying to step onto creep here. He's got no observer, so he can't pick up. Oh, he does have. Where's his observer? Oh, his observer over here above the army of Lambo. So he's not able to pick up any creep tumors right now. But there it is. The force fields on the north side. Engagement on the south side. Lambo going for a flank, but he's going to get boxed out here, Steadfast.
Yeah, that was a really nice attempt from Goblin. Tries to get himself into that base, but Lambo jumps on it just a little bit too quickly, and we are going to see this army surrounded. Corrosive Biles got so much done right there. Only Immortals left over, and Lambo, after a really scary moment,